Hello everyone. The purpose of this video is to teach you how to use Blue Prism in a business scenario where you might want to, rename the columns in a collection, um, perhaps as part of a solution to your solution. I mean, to the business problem you're trying to solve. Um, I came across something like this in really my first Blue Prism project, that I was building. And I realized that there's not much information about it online, so I thought to share this scenario. So we're going to use an imaginary scenario here where, maybe I have this workbook that has these columns. I work in a portfolio management firm, and so these are stocks. This is an imaginary portfolio, for example, and somebody has Microsoft, Tesla, Disney, and so on and so forth. And this is what they bought it for. This is the price per unit. This is the cost of a person. This is the number of units. This is what it costs today if you wanted to sell it or buy it. And this is the portfolio value. This is how much of the portfolio does Microsoft um, contains Microsoft stocks. That's about 43% of the portfolio is Microsoft stock. Only about 9% is Disney. How much money have you made or lost on each stock is here, and how much money, how much is the percentage gain or loss, right? So this is how we report to people's portfolios to them, right? And maybe my boss has said, okay, this is just an imaginary scenario that, you know what, I don't like these titles anymore. I don't think they're good enough. I want you to change them to say equities. I want you to call this equities, and I want you to call this um, shall we say, cost per share. I want you to call this, let me see, this one is, hold on, cost per share. I want you to call this one here, I want you to call it market value. In other words, I want you to change the names of all the columns. This one, I want you to call it percentage of portfolio. I want you to call this percentage gain or loss in brackets. Put a little space here. I want you to call this, I'm sorry, I want this to include in USD. We're trading in dollars. And then I would say percentage gain or loss. Oh dear. All right, so these I would call current stock price, and then lastly units held. Well, second to the last, and then this is let's see, what's a good name for it? Let's just call it cost of purchase. A cost. So here's what I would say. I would say, yeah, this is where this I would call entry price. Okay, apologies for that. So here's the business case here. I have maybe 500 clients, and my boss has decided she doesn't like these titles anymore. And she wants me to change it for the 500 people. Now I have the choice of going into the Excel sheet and typing in manually 500 times, or I can just write an RPA script that will, basically pick up each workbook and quickly swap the titles. so that what you have on top will look like this, right? Something like that, all right? So this cost per share is not a good one. So let me just call it entry cost, okay? All right. So this is where we are and this is where we're headed, but we don't want to do it manually. That's the business problem, right? I have to make a note of this entry cost. All right. So the question now is, how do we get this done? So I'm going to delete all of this because I'm just showing you this so that you know what I'm trying to do. I'm essentially trying to replace this with, I'm supposed to do this, just paste this on this, sort of rename the columns. That's the purpose of this automation. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm essentially going to leave the workbook as it was before. So I'm not going to save it. It's going to go back to blank. However, the question at hand is, how do you get that done? So I'm going to give you a number of steps. The first step is for each, I think the first thing you need to do is, what are the names you want to change the columns to? So you have to sort of create a data item for each of those names. Now it might make more sense, right? So I shouldn't have closed that, but we'll quickly do it again. Oh, great, it saved. Right, so these are the things you want to change it to, right? So the first thing you do is you create data items for those names. We might be able to do this side by side so that you can sort of walk with me on the journey. This is our Excel sheet. I'm going to minimize it. It's not quite letting me, but squish it. Just so that you're following me as I'm working. So again, I'm going to minimize this so that just so you can have a side-by-side type of look. So what I'm saying is that the new column names, that is all these things currently in row 9, I'm sorry, we make a data item for each of them. So the first one is equities. I'll do this, I'll say equities. And it's a text data type. All of them are going to be text data type. And then I create the data item, and then I also take the additional step of instantiating or putting in an initial value for each of them. So I've done for equities. I'm going to do for entry price now. So entry price, is that what is called entry price? Yeah, that's it. It's also a text data item, and I'm going to instantiate it with the entry. The initial value is going to be entry price. So I have to do this for all of these items, cost per share, and so on and so forth. All right, so I'm just going to quickly do this. Data items, where are they? So I need 10 of them. Not 10, but so how many do I need? I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus 7 more. I mean 4 more, I'm sorry. 3, 4. I think they're all 7, so that'll be 5. Right, so I was at cost per share now. The text data item, I'm going to instantiate with cost per share, and so on and so forth. So units held is the next one. Units held. I think it's better if I just copy and paste this thing. Forgive me for and I'm going to instantiate it with units held. Let's try to be uniform. So the idea is to just quickly, like I said, create a data item for each of the new headers that you're trying to create, and then instantiate the variable or data item with that same name. So we've done current stock price. We're about to do market value, which we're going to quickly copy. Market value. It's a text data type. And then percentage of portfolio. Looks like I still need a few more data items. Text data item. So all of them are text data items, and we're instantiating all of them. So what else do I need to put here? I just did percentage. So 2 more. 1, 2. So I'm taking percentage gain or loss in USD. And then last but not the least, percentage gain or loss. Again, I have to, this wasn't properly written. It's a bracket in there. Oh, parentheses, as they say in the US. Text. So we've taken the first step. Step number 1 is instantiate, create data items for all the new titles, new headers. And so I'm going to delete this because I really don't need that anymore. So again, have a good look at the old workbook. My goal is to replace all of these headers with the new ones. But before I do that, I still have one more step to take. So step 1, like I said, was create a new set of inputs here. I'm just going to follow best practice and quickly draw a block around it. I think there'll be a few more as we go along. And inputs, you're supposed to, by best practice, paint green and label appropriately. Okay. Now that you've done this, the next thing you're supposed to do is create a collection. So you drag in a collection stage, and this time you're going to, let me change this back to black. This time you're going to let me explain this. Field names. What's going to be in here, I'll just put a nice little note here, is the current collection field names. So in other words, all these guys here in this workbook, these headers, right? I'll call them column names. Let me not use field, let me use column names, right? And then I will sort of instantiate them right here. So I'm going to quickly click the add button. I'm going to call this stock. As you can see, the first one is stock. It's a text type variable. The next one is buy price. It's right there on my left. It's also a text type variable. In fact, they're all text type variables. The next one is cost of purchase. It does matter. Try not to make typos. So we have to do that again for all the items on this list, units. And you'll see why it is necessary in a little bit. Add, next one is current price. I would copy and paste so as to make sure we don't make any typos, but I'm just a little bit lazy to do that. Stock value, and then text. I think we're almost there. The next one is percentage. Text. Next thing is profit. Profit slash loss. And it's also text. I think we have about 2 or 3 more. Oopsie daisy. Oh, last one. It's already the last one, percentage gain. That's interesting. It's a lot faster than the other one. Why is that? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, sounds right. So when you do this, I mean, best practice is to what are you trying to, what does this represent? You say, okay, the security on the exchange, right? The name of the on the stock exchange, right? So the idea being that you should typically describe what you're trying to do here, but I don't want to waste your time because that's not important to what we're doing. But best practice, you should properly name it. So after you've done this, what you want to do is you want to instantiate this by adding a single row here on the next sheet under initial values, next page. So I was on fields before, I clicked on initial values and I added one row and I say okay. So what I've done is I've created a repository that's going to help me to swap the column names, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. Now that I have done that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use what is called a multi-calculation stage to sort of swap the names, right? So what I'm going to say basically in script language is, let me just write this, assign new names to current column names. Now, if you recall the collection, I'm not going to do anything here yet. The collection I just created, the column names, what I put in there was the name, the current name of each column in the workbook, stock, all the way down to gain, right? So I'm going to use this command here, this multi-calculation, to swap names. So I'm going to say, for example, just in the same way that this is laid out, I'm going to say whatever column names dot stock, which would be column A on my left, I want you to, whatever you find there, assign, all the names are here. I want it to be called equities now. So this is your new name you put here. I'm basically saying whatever is in equities, put it here when I run this program. And I'm going to do that for every other column. So whatever is in buy price, right? I want you to put entry price. Whatever is in, what was the next column? Cost of purchase. Oops, you gotta add this first. Cost, and again, I don't really love this about Blue Prism, but it's what it is. It gets the job done. Right, so what do you want to call cost of purchase? Let me just add all the columns right now, so that I don't go back and forth. Add all the rows, I'm sorry. So the next thing after cost of purchase is units. If you're looking at my left. Next thing after that is current price. Next thing after that is stock value. Next thing after that is percentage. Next thing after that is profits / loss. Next thing after that is, I believe it was percentage gain. I guess I could always find out percentage gain here. So here it is. Just dragging them in. So now what do I want to replace this with? Cost of purchase. I want to replace it with, did I say cost per share? Okay, I should change that though. I'll come back to it later. Cost per share. And then I was going to call it entry cost. So I have to change the name of that, but I'll come back to that. Cost per share, and then units. I think I wanted to call units held. Um, Current price. I want to call current stock price. Stock value. I want to call market value. Um, Percentage. I want to call percentage of portfolio because it's more descriptive. That's why the boss said we should do it like this. Profit and loss. Um, and then lastly, I want to call this percentage gain or loss. So I'm just going to quickly, I think I made a little error of, I said I wasn't going to call this cost per share because it wasn't really great as a descriptor. So I'll say entry cost, and I'll go back there and fix it, which is another sort of downside of Blue Prism. In another software, that would update automatically, but it doesn't quite happen like that in Blue Prism. You have to, whenever you make a change to it, to a variable, you have to sort of literally go back there and manually replace everything you've used that variable for. So I don't think that's a very good strength. But where are we now? Entry costs. I think that's it. So I'm going to replace cost per share with that. Oopsie daisy. Select that. Entry cost. So what I have done here is I've basically used scripting, visual scripting to say assign equities. Wherever you see column name to be stock, change it to whatever you find in equities. And what is in equities? I initiated with this value equity. So it's going to replace that with equities, right? But then how do you actually execute that instruction, right? So the first thing you want to do is really you have to sort of, there are a number of actions you need to call to accomplish this, right? But this is one of the first things you're going to do when you get to the point where you want to rename it. It's one of the more complicated things, I would say. That's why I did it first. So the first thing you want to do is you actually want to create an Excel instance, because this is an Excel sort of exercise. So you call in an action, and then I already had one there. So you look for the Excel VBO object, and then create instance is what you want. I'm sorry. The actual action you want is create instance, right? And and then you create a handle for this instance, which is just a number to indicate how many instances of Excel are running. So create instance, I'm gonna delete this, so it's clearer to you. And after you do that, you actually open the workbook. Now I'm gonna copy and paste this because it will save me a few steps. Right? So, but I'm not gonna use it to create instance this time. I'm gonna use it to open the workbook that we're gonna use. Let's scroll down to open workbook. And it has a number of requirements. The first is that, hey, what's the handle? And then next, what's the file name? And then where should I store the file name, right? So I'm going to store the file name in a variable called portfolio to be renamed, right? I know it's kind of long, but just bear with me on that one. So I'm saying when you open this instance, store it in this workbook, but then I have to give a file name. Where is this file located, right? So I'd rather, I'm going to close this and sort of do it properly. And there are lots of ways to get this file name, but I'll just copy path from here. And I'm going to create a data item. I'm going to call it current portfolio report. It's a text item, and I'm going to initiate it with this value, which is basically where's the Excel file located that I want to use. And I come back here to this data item I was working on, and this time is named Open Workbook. So this is not exactly faster, but yeah. So this time I just named the workbook source. I believe it was called current portfolio report. So here it is. So this is the file path, and I'm saying when you get that folder, put it inside this variable, which I'll call on later. So open workbook. Next thing after that is I want to copy whatever is in this workbook into a collection. This is the way you do it in Blue Prism. I didn't make this up. I feel like it's a lot of steps, but the objective is to show you how to get it done very quickly, what you're trying to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is this time I'm going to just call an action. I don't feel like copying and pasting, save me much time. Again, I'm going for Excel VBO. And my objective is to, this time I want to get the worksheets that I've just called upon as a collection. In other words, I want to copy everything that's in the workbook or worksheet into a collection of items. So I call on my handle, right? And then what's my workbook name? That is the workbook name is the one I just called portfolio to be renamed. Portfolio to be renamed. I cannot see you. Did I not finish the job? Yeah, there you go. And then inside that workbook, as you can see here, this thing is called sheet 1. Sheet 1. It doesn't matter that you put the right sheet there. I won't read it. Right? And then after that, where am I going to store the collection as? And I'm going to call it portfolio collected. Right? I'm going to create another variable with that information. Right? And then I'm going to say OK. So in other words, I've copied all of this, which you'll see, and put it into a collection named portfolio collected. Then after I do that, I now assign the new names to the headers. And then after that, I now actually execute that instruction. To do that, I will need I'll need to pull this utility collection manipulation object, right? And what I'm looking for is rename collection fields. So I'm essentially saying that take portfolio collected that I just brought in and replace it with this new column names, and then store the results in something called renamed portfolio report. All right? And then make sure you click that to create it. If you want a success message stored, you can, put it in a data item if you think it's important. Error message. You can put it in another data item, whatever the error message is, if there's one. I don't know that that's compulsory, but I just put that there. So I'm essentially saying this collection that I just pulled, assign these new headers to it, and then store the results in this place, right? And after you do that, I'm going to say, it's getting busy. Let me move this stuff out of the way. Kind of had to do this like side by side so you have a visual on what I'm trying to do. then it's getting busy because the screen is so small. Right, so after I've done this, the next step is to write the new collection that I have created back into the workbook, which I can do. I'm just renaming this one. This name is too long so you can see it. So I'm calling another action. This time, this action is also an Excel VBO action, but this time I'm writing, by now I've renamed the collection and I sort of want to write it back to the workbook, the Excel workbook. So again, we're going to call on our good old handle. It's here. Our workbook name is, I believe it was called Current Portfolio Report. Let me see. No. Portfolio to be renamed. Portfolio to be renamed. Where is it? And then the collection I want to put in there is the latest one, that one called Renamed Portfolio Report. Where are you? It's in the collections, which I kind of... So Renamed Portfolio Report is the one I want to write there. I want you to write it in sheet 1. Start from column A1. Yes, I want you to include column names. Yeah, that's it. So write the collection. And after you've written the collection, I want you to save the workbook and close it. So I'll just quickly do a few more actions. 1, 2. I think I'll still need one more action. Perhaps I should try and make this a little bigger so you can see better. All right, so after I write the collection, I'm going to save the workbook. Again, a VBO action. Cell VBO, save workbook. And then it's going to ask which workbook, which handle, which workbook. So handle is the same. Workbook is our portfolio to be renamed. And no outputs. After you save workbook, I would like to close Excel. I'd like to close workbook, close instance, and kill Excel. So pardon me, but again, you have to take a lot of little steps in Blue Prism. So this action is to close the workbook. It's going to ask the same questions again. Handle. And maybe a few more. And then what else do we got here? What workbook? Again, this is this guy. And then save data. Let's say true. I feel like this is superfluous, but superfluous meaning not necessary, but I want to put it there because I don't want any failures. After closing workbook, I would want to close the instance I opened earlier, the Excel instance. So again, I call on the VBO action. I'm opening a fresh one because it sort of automatically names it when you do it this way. It's going to ask which one. You give it the handle. It's asking again, save changes, which again is like the third time I'm doing that. But I'm saying true. And then last but not the least, let me rename this one before I take the last step, so you can see clearly what the action is doing. Then last but not the least, I'm going to, just in case Excel, which happens at production level from time to time, just in case Excel does not die for whatever reason, we use the environment. I'm sorry, the general object to like kill process. No, not general. I think it's called environment. I'm sorry, kill process. And then I'll just say it's Excel. I want you to kill. All right. And say okay. So these are all the steps you need to take if you want to do the little step of renaming columns. All right. So I'm kind of reducing so you see what each action does. So I'm going to make this a little bigger so you see everything. So I'm going to have to link all of these, right? Um, so are there any outputs? Yes, there are outputs. I'm going to, this is an output. Um, and I just call this an output because these are sort of best practice type requirements, if you like. I think the color for outputs is this. All right. So there are a couple of things that are outputs. They might include, I think this is an output, this error message is an output, the success is an output. You know, I believe this is also an output. So basically, you sort of put things in their proper place, but I don't want to waste too much time after that. Doing that. So what I'm going to do is link all the stages. So the first thing I do is I'm going to create an Excel instance, open the workbook that I want to rename. The columns, yeah. And then get the contents of that workbook, assign new names to the columns, and then actually execute what I've done. Then write back what I have, just the new collection or the new workbook with the new columns into the same workbook I got it from. Save it, close it, right? And then make sure by killing Excel that it really went well, right? So that is the process from end to end. I'm going to close this. By the time I run this process now, you're going to see that I'm going to do it very fast. The column names have changed. So I press play. And you can see up here it's running. It's completed. So just to make sure that we are correct, I'm going to open this again. And you will see that this was stock is now equities, this was entry prices now, this was something else. So what I did before I started this video was I sort of took a screenshot of what it was before, because it might be hard to visualize. So this is what it was before. All right, I'm going to put it right next to it. And I believe it is open. And so it was stock before, and now it's equities. It was buy price before, now it's entry price. Cost of purchase, now entry cost, units. So that's how those are the steps you take if you want to change column names very quickly. Now, if you had 500 of this, you just put this into a loop and it'll be done in a few seconds, really. So it takes a lot of effort to build it. I think in that sense, Blue Prism has a lot of steps, but it's also, you also get a visual perspective that, say, another software might not give you. So pros and cons, but this is what you need to do if you want to rename columns. So thank you for watching. I hope you liked my first Blue Prism video, and I'm gonna be creating more soon to help those who get stuck in the real world of building applications. All right, thank you. Have a nice day.